Hello, I'm Dr. Ala Kamerdiner. Welcome to Discrete-event simulation. This is Lecture 9. I will talk about building simulation models in Arena and also discuss assign, decide, and record modules. We continue talking about modeling basic operations and inputs. So let's talk more about how to run Arena models. So we reviewed that before, but let me summarize and introduce some new information on how to run Arena models. We'll talk about run menu, standard, and run interaction toolbars. So as you already know, in order to control options in the run, we can go run and then set up in Arena and then change options that will allow us to control how we run our simulation. And these are attached to the model and are not global. We can also press Run Go or click this button to run simulation normally, and it depends on selection from Run Control and Tools option Run Control. We can also press Run and then Set Up in Arena or press this button, and that will allow us to step one at a time, and this is useful for verification and debugging. We can also go Run Fast Forward in Arena or press this button in order to disable animation, and this will allow us to run our animation much faster. We can also press Run Pause in Arena or click this button or press Escape key, and this will freeze the run and you can resume later with a go. We can also say Run, Start Over in Arena or press this button to go back to the beginning of the simulation. If we go Run End in Arena or press this button, we get out of the run mode. We can also go Run, Check Model or press this button, and that allows us to do compiling. And we can also go Run, Review Errors, and this is helpful to get the most recent check. And then we can do Run Control, and then Command or press this button to bring up interactive command line window to control the run. And we can also go Run, then Run Control, then Breakpoints, or press this button in order to set the times, conditions to interrupt for checks, and illustration. We also can do Run, then Run Control, then Watch, or press this button, and this allows us to bring up window to watch a variable or expression during the run. We can do Run Control, Break on Module, and that will help us set or clear breaks when an entity enters or resumes activity on the module. We can do Run Control, Highlight Active Module, and that will highlight the flowchart module that is being currently executed. We can do Run, then Run Control, then Batch Run, No Animation, and that speeds up the simulation because it runs the model without no animation, so it's the fastest run that we can do. And it's even faster than Fast Forward. It's usually used for production runs for statistical analysis. We can also do Run Simon, and that allows us to view or write model, which is a file with an extension .mod, and also experiment, which is a file with extension .exp for underlying Simon model. So today we'll talk how to create this model 4.1 from the book, and this model's assembly and test system. So you can see the flowchart or logical chart for this model on this picture here. And we will produce two different sealed units, parts A and B. And the arriving parts will actually cast metal cases machined to accept electronic parts. And part A, part B are separate prep areas, and both go to sealer for assembly, testing, and then to shipping out if okay, otherwise they go to rework. And during rework, we will determine whether the part can be salvaged and then later shipped, or has to be scrapped. So we have run conditions, and we have some outputs, and we start empty and idle. We're gonna run this for 32 hours. We will, during our run, collect the statistics for each work area on such important output measures as resource utilization, number in queue, time in queue, and also for each exit point, such as shipped, salvaged, and scrapped, we will collect total time in the system, also known as cycle time. So we will start developing the model. In order to start developing the model, we need to define the pieces of the model, such as modules, data structures, and control logic. We also need to include appropriate level of detail, and that's a judgment call of a modeler. And often there is multiple ways to model or represent logic. So in this model, we have entities that are two different types. There are individual parts, so we have two types of entities. So we need to create two separate create modules for two part types. And we will have separate process modules for each prep area, and process modules for sealer and rework. And we also have it followed by decide module, which is two-way by chance. And we have depart modules for shipped, salvaged, and scrapped. And we have attribute sealer time assigned after creates in the assign module. The parts will have different times as the sealer. And we have record module just before departs for us to be able to record the time in the system for shipped, salvaged, and scrapped parts. Because even though we have two types of parts, we're not going to be recording the cycle time by those parts, but instead we're going to be recording the cycle time based on what is the final outcome, which is shipped, salvaged, or scrapped. So to build the model, we're going to open the new model window. We make sure that the basic process panel is attached. We're going to start placing the modules. So for this model, we will place two create modules, two assign modules, four process modules, two decide modules, three record modules, and three dispose modules. And so we can right-click to repeat the last action, place a module. We can auto-connect or manually connect using this button here. As you can see, right, this little button that has a square and then the blue wiggly line and then a diamond. And an alternate strategy is to place one module at a time and fill it out completely. So the part A has the following inter-arrivals. So part A has the following inter-arrivals. We have a single part that arrives in exponential with exponential distribution of inter-arrivals every 5 minutes. And from arrival point, the parts go immediately to part A prep. And that's where we have a process, so machine, debug, and clean with a triangular distribution with parameters 1, 4, and 8 minutes. And then they go immediately to sealer. And there's another process. This is assembling and test. and it takes a triangular 1, 3, 4 minutes time. And then after the sealer process, there's inspection, and 91% pass inspection and go to shipped. Other parts go to rework. And then during rework, we have reprocess and testing, and that takes exponential 45 minutes. And after the rework, there's another inspection, and 80% pass and go to salvage, and everything that doesn't pass go to scrapped. And then we also have part B. They have arrivals in batches of 4, and these arrivals are exponentially distributed. Inter-arrival times was 30 as a mean parameter for the exponential distribution. And upon arrival, the batch breaks into 4 individual parts, and these parts altogether proceed to part B prep area, and that's where we have a process. And again, it's machine, deburr, and then clean, and that process takes this random time that's distributed triangularly with parameters 3, 5, and 10. 3 being the minimum, 5 being the average, and 10 being the maximum time. And then the parts go to the sealer, and that's another process where we have an assembly and a test, and that process takes between 2.5 and 5.3 minutes, and it's different from part A. Also, it's the same station. And then again, inspection the same way, 91% pass, go to shipped, else go to rework. And then in terms of rework, we have the reprocessing and test, and that takes expo 45 minutes. And then again, another inspection, like we said, 80% will pass, go to salvage, other parts go to script. So we're gonna start with creating this and then discussing additional things. So let me go ahead and demonstrate. So please go ahead and start Arena. So here I already started the Arena, and I'm gonna start modeling in Arena. So I need to create modules. So this is one create, and here I have part A arrive, and instead of entity 1, I'm gonna name this as part A, and the inter-arrival times are exponentially distributed, and the parameter for the exponential distribution is 5. We need to change the units to minutes. Part A arrives, only a single part arrives at a time, and we don't limit the maximum arrivals in the first creation. For part A is at time 0, so this is our first create. So what I could do is I could grab another create and place it here, or I can copy this one. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy, and then I'm gonna paste it somewhere here, for example. And now notice, right, it yells at me, Arena yells at me, it highlights this new part A and tells me that I need to change it. So I'm gonna go ahead and change it. Right, so I'm gonna go in and make some changes. So it's gonna be part B. Here is gonna be part B. My arrivals are gonna be distributed exponentially again, but the value is gonna be different. It's gonna be 30. The parameter value is gonna be 30 minutes. So units already there, and because it arrives in batches of 4, I have 4 entities per arrival. Again, the rest is kind of the same. We don't limit the arrivals, and the first creation starts at 0. So now we have part B. So if I look at my entity, now I have part A and part B, both entities. They both have the same initial picture, which wouldn't help me distinguish between those two. So part A's, I'm going to change the picture, and instead of having the report, I'm going to have blue balls for part A's to represent part A parts or entities. So, and then for part B, the balls are going to be red. Oh, shouldn't be done. Okay, so now I changed that. The next thing I want to do is have the assigns. So let me go and show you what we're gonna do in assigns. So here we have part A attributes assign module. In that module we're gonna assign part A sealer and arrive time, and that will be our name for the assign module. We're gonna have in the add button we will type attribute, attribute name, a new value for the attribute. Again, we're gonna do the same thing, press the add button and create another attribute for the arrive time. And for arrive time we're gonna use a new value TNOW, and the TNOW is an internal arena variable. It's a name for simulation clock. You can see the information in the help, arena help, constants and variables, functions and distributions, variables, date and time variables. And then a very similar assign module we also will do for part B. So we'll have this assign module name assign part B sealer and arrive time. We'll again do the same, press the add button, add an attribute sealer time, have this new value, and then another pressing add button we'll add an attribute with the name arrive time, and that's where we use the TNOW as a value. So let me demonstrate in Arena how to do this. So in order for me to get my assign module to automatically connect with the appropriate create module, I'm going to select my create module for part A arrive, and next I'm going to find the assign right here in the basic process. If you don't have the basic process attached, you can click on templates attached there, and then in templates, right, so you go to C, program files, Rockwell software, Arena, template, and that's where we have templates, and then you select one of the .tpo files called basic process, and when you double click on it or click on it and then press open, it will attach the basic process to your project bar. If you don't have the project bar, then you can click view and then make sure that this project bar is selected, checked here. So now from the project bar in the basic process model, I need to add the assign. So in order to automatically connect it to my create, right, because I want it to be connected with my create part A so that entities know where to flow, that from the create it flows to the assign, I selected this module, and now I'm grabbing the assign and I'm dragging it here to connect to part A arrive. So now I'm going to change the assign module. So here I'm going to type in assign part A sealer and arrive time, and here, right, I can either double click on the end of the list, or like I was told in the slide, to press add, right? So you can either double click, and then you can also press add. Either way it works the same way. So again, example, I'm double clicking here, I'm finding the attribute because I want it to, right, this should not be the variable because variables are single things for one model. I want each part to have its own local variable, so I need to select attribute here. So attribute, and then I press attribute singular time, and my value is gonna be triangular, right? So I could type it in, or I could click, right, some right clicking here, and I get build expression, and in build expressions there's my random distributions. So I click on random distributions and then scroll down to triangular, select triangular, and then change these values to 1, this one to 3, and this one to 4. And then I say OK. Of course, I could have just typed it in. That would work just the same way, but I wanted to demonstrate to you how I can build this expression. So OK, and the next thing I want to add, right? So again, I can double click, or I can press add. So let me press add this time. I want another local variable for my entity, which means I need to select attribute, right? Because the variables of Arena is a single things for the entire model. Here, each individual entity should have its own. So I'm selecting attribute, and I'm gonna have this arrive time. And this is where I can either type in TNOW, or I could actually build an expression for it. And so I can click build expression, and then I can select date and time functions, and then I click current simulation time. And this generates the TNOW for me automatically. So if you were wondering why I use arrive time, the arrive time is actually a time of arrival, right? As you can see, for this case, in this case, it's going to be right the time of the arrival. But if I place it somewhere else in the Arena model, it would be the current time for the simulation. And this is needed upon the exit so that we can compute time in a system that is separated by a final disposition of the part, right? Which is shipped, salvaged, or separated, rather than by entity type, which is automatically provided by entities, right? As long as we have the entities checked, right? So if you check the entities box and run setup project parameters, it would automatically, the Arena would automatically get these cycle times or total times for us for part A's and part B's, but we want the cycle times not by part A, part B distinction, right? Not by entity type distinction, but by this final disposition, right? Whether it was shipped, salvaged, or separated. And so we need to track it ourselves, by ourselves. So now we got that, and now I'm just gonna copy. I'm gonna copy this, and I'm gonna select this now, and I'm gonna paste. So I could say shift insert, for example. I'm gonna paste here. Hopefully it will select, maybe not. So see, this time if I'm pasting it, it's not really connecting it automatically. So what can I do, right? I need to make sure that the entity knows where to go. So I could actually click. So I would select part B and connect it using, see, I just clicked on this connector, and I'm manually connecting it to each other. So now I have them connected. So the next thing is to do the processes. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the processes without reviewing it, but you can look at the slide and see what we do in terms of the process. So first, one thing I forgot, right? See how Arena yells at me? I forgot to change, right? I copied the whole thing, but I didn't change what needed to be changed. So I need to change this to B, and the sealer time is actually going to be different, right? So I need to double click on it or click edit, right? So I can click edit, and it shouldn't be triangular. as it was before. It should be Weibull, right? So the sealer time is going to be Weibull, and I can either type in Weibull, or I could instead build an expression, which is preferred method. So you'll go here, select Weibull among the distributions, right? So you can see this was random distributions, and then click on Weibull, and it gets me here, and then there I have 2.5 for the scale parameter and 5.3 for the shape parameter. And this will know, right, the sealer time now being assigned, and the arrive time is still TNOW, so I don't need to change anything there. So I do OK, and now Arena is OK with me as well, because I changed my name, right? The names must be different, unique in Arena. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the processes for part A and prep and part B prep. So to do that, I'm gonna select the A first, so assign A, because I want to connect my PrepA process to the assign A. So I'm grabbing the process, and I'm gonna connect. This will automatically connect it to the assign. And so the next thing for me is to change the process name, so it's gonna be part A or PrepA process, and right now by default the action is delay, but I'm gonna change it to cease delay release, and this will engage the resource. We're gonna add the resource. I can either double click here, or I can press add. So adding a resource called PrepA, and you need only one resource to be seized by the part, so the part will seize only one resource. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change this. So my PrepA takes triangular time, but it should be minutes, so I'm gonna change this to minutes. I'm gonna change the parameters for triangular to 1 being minimum, 4 being average, and 8 being maximum. And then the similar thing I'm gonna do for PrepB. So I'm gonna select this, I'm gonna get the process, edit. I'm gonna go here, rename the process to PrepB process, change to cease delay release as an action, then click add the resource. It's gonna be PrepB, and the entity will cease as 1. And then I'm gonna change again the units, very importantly, to minutes. I'll have the triangular for my PrepB, and I have 3, 5, and 10 as parameters. Okay, and so the next after that, the parts should go to the sealer process. So I can select either one of those, and I can add another process here. It's gonna be a sealer process. I still need to connect the PrepB, so let me go ahead and remember to do that. So I click on PrepB process, select it to process 3, and then change the process 3 to sealer process. Again, the action is going to be cease delay release, so I need a resource. My resource is going to be sealer, and each part will take or seizes 1 sealer. So expression is going to be right, or delay tab is going to be expression, because remember we just defined the sealer time, importantly, we need to change units to minutes, and here we can either click here, right, but we don't have really anything right here that we use. Instead, we need to use sealer time. So alternatively, we can right click on the expression, select build expression, and then go to basic process, then attribute, value, and select sealer time, and then press OK. So that takes care of the sealer time, right? Because those are two different expressions that we would need. So we define an attribute that allows us to do that. And then after the sealer process, we need a decide process. Not decide process, sorry, decide module. So a sealer inspection decide module, right? And after we do the decide, we have basically using the decide so that we can make a decision, right? It provides, this decide module provides the branch points in terms of our flow, logical flow. And there are different types of decide modules. We can do it by condition, and then we need to specify the conditions that involves entity attributes or some global variables, or it could be by chance. And in this case, it's multi-sided, possibly biased, hypercoin flip, right? So it's, in a way, it's similar to coin, but the coin only allows two different possibilities. But here we can have many different possibilities when we do by chance. It could be more than two. It could be multiple. And so the name will be failed sealer inspection. It will be two-way by chance, and that's actually default for the decide. And the percent true will be 9%. So again, going to be different exit points for true and false results, so we need to connect appropriately downstream. And again, important to keep in mind, right, not it's percent true and not probability of true, right? So 9 means probability of 0.09. So let me go ahead and demonstrate. Now we're in Arena. I'm going to select the sealer process to which I'm going to connect decide. A decide is a module, a flowchart module from the basic process. So I grab the flowchart module decide and connect it, and now I need to change. So I'm going to rename the decide to failed sealer inspection. Then here there's other options, but this default two-way by chance is what I want, and I select 9 here as a percent, right, percent true, and this is going to be the percent of parts that failed the inspection. So I need to keep that in mind, right? So the true is going to be those that failed. And so the next thing, right, is going to be the rework, right, for those that failed, as there's going to be another process called rework. So I'm going to add the rework process here. It automatically connects me to the true. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to make some changes to this. I'm going to rename the process to rework process, and I'm going to change the logic to delay, cease delay release, and I'm going to add the resource because cease delay release requires the resource, and my resource is going to be rework. See, if I named my resource rework process, it wouldn't work. Why? Yes, because it's not a unique name. See, so even if I did, right, then later, if you look at the resource, right, it's highlighted this rework process because the name is not unique, even though it allowed me to do that. So I need to go back in, I need to rename this to as a rework, and then I'm gonna change my rework is gonna be done through the expression, right? Because you can see there is no exponential. I need to use exponential, so I can check the expression. I need to make sure to remember to select minutes here as units, and then I can do expression. I can either click here and select exponential, or as before, right, I could double click, right click, and then say build the expression, random distributions, and then select exponential here, right? So either way I can do that, either way, right? So, and then whatever mean I want to do, right? Should be 45, right? Or alternatively, as I said, I could just put here 45 and then my mean parameter, right? Select expo there and then mean parameter. So either way, this is how you can do that. Well, see, the problem is didn't allow me to do the process. Let me check what the resources. Let me change this name for the resource process here. And so now I should be able to change this. This of course needs to change. Again, as I said, should be expression, minutes, exponential, and then 45. And now it works, right? So again, make sure you don't name things that's not unique. I demonstrated that will create some problems, but you can always fix those problems. All right. So the next thing we want to do is to create to have another decide module, and this decide is going to be after rework. We're going to decide whether it still fails or after this further inspection it's now okay and it's been salvaged. So we're going to have failed rework inspection, failed rework inspection, right? So I changed the name for my decide. It's still going to be two-way by chance, and percent true is now going to be 20, so 20% will still fail and will have to be scrapped. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have to, before we dispose of the parts, we need to compute the cycle time. So the cycle time will be computed using this record modules. So let me review what record modules are. So here, regarding the record module is basically the module, that flowchart module that allows us to collect some output information, and so that is necessary when Arena does not collect something automatically, because as we noticed, right, because we used the other model that we built, and that model 3.1, Arena automatically created a lot of outputs, right? And so Arena does collect and report many output statistics by default, but sometimes not what you want. And so because we want the time in the system of parts sorted by their exit points, such as shipped, salvaged, or scrapped, right, we want to do it ourselves, right? We will need to do that ourselves using this record module. And it is this sorting that Arena doesn't do by default. It would automatically sort by entity type, right? What was our entity type? It was part A or part B, right? And so if we were interested in just getting the cycle time or time in the system based on entity type, part A or part B, right, all we needed to do, we would just needed to say run setup project parameters, right, and then check the entities box to collect the statistics on entities. But this will not help us, right? It will collect the time in the system or cycle time for the part A and for part B separately. But we want it by shipped, salvaged, and scrapped, right? By what happens there at the end. So to do that, we're gonna use record module, and so we'll play the record module can be placed in the flowchart to collect and report various kind of statistics from within the model as they run, right, as the entities run through that flowchart. So let me demonstrate what we're gonna do, right? And important thing also is that for teletype output performance measures, right, we can use this record module. So let me show you what we're gonna do. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna in Arena select the failed rework, and we're gonna record the parts that need to be scrapped, right? Because the scrapped parts are the ones that failed rework inspection. So I selected my failed rework inspection, I grab my record, and it's gonna connect it to the true. And here I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna change this record to record scrapped parts. I need to be careful to really know what kind of parts is gonna go here. I know those will be the parts that failed rework, right? So 20% that failed rework, which are gonna have to be scrapped. So you can see there are type right now selected count, but we want to get a time interval here, right? Because we're collecting the time from the times that part arrived to the current time, right? Which is the time when it's exiting. And so that would be the time interval. And if you don't believe me, which is a good thing, right? You can always check, right? You can, maybe if you're not sure, you can go help, and that tells you information, right, about the record module. It tells you, right, examples, very useful examples in terms of what kind of things you can do, right? It tells you about prompts, which is important, right? So it tells you, right, what are other different types, and specifically it tells us that type is a type of observational, right? Either tally, right? This observational is a tally, or a count statistic to be generated, right? So that in the record module we can collect the tallies, right, or count statistics, and count will increase or decrease the value of the name statistic by specified value, right? Entity statistics will generate general entity statistics such as time and costing during information. Time interval will calculate and record the difference between a specified attribute's value and the current simulation time. And then the time between will track and record the time between entities entering the module. So you can see the time interval is what we want to use, not the time between. And finally, expression will record the value of specified expression. So this tells us, right, if you looked it up, it tells us what exactly we need to do. For now, let's exit the help. Let's continue with this. So the attribute name is gonna be arrive time. So I can select it here, right? If you type it in, you could have a misprint, and that wouldn't be correct. So it's always good to select things. So I'm selecting the attribute. It's going to be arrive time, right? So it will be between time now is an interval between time, current time, and the time, right, and then value of the attribute, which is the arrive time. And so again, right, we'll leave the tally name unchanged and say okay. We could be recording in a set, but in this case we don't need to be recording into a set. That's for a different type of models. So now we got this record scrapped parts. We're gonna do 3 similar other records. So if I select this and then I grab another record, right, I could place this record here, it automatically connects me, right, and here will be the ones that are salvaged, right? So we're gonna record salvage parts, record salvaged parts, change from count to time interval, we need to select the attribute arrive time, and this will record salvaged parts. Let's also add salvaged parts. That automatically changes our tally name appropriately. And then last but not least, I want to select this one, and I'm going to add the record here for those that did not fail sealed inspection. Those are parts that are okay right away and can be shipped right away. So these are going to be my shipped parts. So I'm going to do record shipped parts. Change the record name for the statistic from count to time interval, and then my attribute name will be arrive time. And so again, here's our tally name. I say OK. So are we done? Not quite, right? We still need to do 3 more things, right? We need to put the dispose modules, right? So we're gonna add the dispose modules. So go to basic process, grab the dispose module. Which one will it connect me to? And will it? Yes, because I have this record shipped part selected, it will automatically record my dispose to record shipped parts. So this dispose is gonna be named shipped. And I'm gonna also have other ones, right? So I'm gonna add another dispose. This is gonna be salvaged. And last but not least is gonna be scrapped. Okay, so let me save this model. So I'm gonna save this as, and I'm saving it in my folder as model 0401 book. And now what I want to do is I want to set up some of the things. So I'm setting up the things in the run setup for my model. So here, if I did not do something, the model would run technically forever. So I need to make sure that I do the changes needed, right? So that there's some kind of termination, and that's a part of the modeling, right, that typically affects the results. So let me go ahead and go to first project parameters. Let's change this to electronic assembly and test system. The analyst name is going to be Dr. Camera designer, and the project model from arena text book section 4.1. And then, very importantly, we need to select replication parameters. So we have number of replications, still 1. We have initialization for statistics in the system between replications, which in this case we just have 1 replication. And for warm-up, we still have no warm-up. Time units could be still hours. Replication length currently infinite. So this whole simulation would be running forever. So we need to change it. We're going to run it for 32 hours. So we'll leave the time units as hours because the replication length is going to be 32 hours. And we'll leave a default 24 hours per day. But we must change the base time units from hours to minutes because our sealer time, for example, is right an expression, and that would be in hours if you didn't change it. So gonna change this to minutes. So now it will stop, the simulation will stop after 32 hours. So let's go ahead and OK, and we can run the system. So let's run the system and see. So you can see, right, the blue balls are parts A, the red balls are part A. So you can see what's happening. Rework process seems to be building up. The queue in the rework process continues to be building up. Might be a bottleneck there. So now it says, would you like to see the results, right? We can say yes, or we can, if it's selected no, we can go to reports and look at the report. So let's go ahead and say yes. And this is our report category overview. So we can look at the information that we have. So we actually have the information on the entities, such as time. So it did automatically collect it because we kept the entity selected. It automatically created, right, the information such as total time for part A and part B. But it did not collect some of the other things, right? It actually would. You can see, right, other is a number in, number out, and work in process. Right, and then after that we have the waiting times, right, number waiting, and we get the utilization and so on, right? So finally at the end we'll have the user specified, right? Those are the ones that we defined there in the record module. So you can go to user specified tally, and that actually where you can get the information regarding salvage parts, scrapped parts, and shipped parts. So these are the times, right? We tallied in the total times for salvage parts, scrapped parts, and shipped parts. So this is a time, and we have the minimum and maximum. We don't have the half width because it's insufficient, right, for us to determine. There is not enough information to determine the half width there. But for some other parts, like example, we have a lot of part A, there was actually enough to collect those. So if you wanted to go and close out from the report, we go here, that closes off the report, and in order to start changing something in the model, right, we need to end the simulation run. So as soon as I press end, right, all this animation will disappear and it will end the simulation run. So now let me review what we did. So now you can see, right, we have this, we could view the results after the run. And so as I said, we can view the results after the run, and when we viewed it, right, we also saw counters during animation for modules, such as create, dispose, and decide, right, and incremented when the entity leaves. And for process, right, the number of entities currently in the module. And then at the end of the simulation run, we were asked, right, if you wanted to see the reports, right? So what we got, the type of statistics that we got, it depends on what we selected, right, in the run setup and project parameters. So if we looked more closely, right, it was even clearer during the animation that rework area might have been a bottleneck, right, but the rework areas should be a bottleneck also as seen from the project. So let me go ahead and look at the project report, at the report one more time. So here, if I wanted to look at the report again, I just go to reports. Here's my category overview, and I go to look at the resource utilization to see whether indeed rework was a bottleneck. And you can see, right, that rework is actually quite a bottleneck, right? Example, your number busy, right? Your instantaneous utilization, as well as the scheduled utilization, right? They're all really high for rework, right? 94, almost 95% utilization. The next area right after that is PrepA was over 90% utilization, but rework is definitely was 95%. Is the busiest area. So as you saw, right, to view the report, right, when I viewed the report, I was able to navigate through the report with browsing errors, right, and there's a tree at the left that I touch, right, so I could actually look up the tally, time persistent encounter statistics. I saw the average, minimum, maximum, and some of the 95% confidence interval half-width, right? Only for some of the half-widths were calculated, for others have not, and we'll discuss more of why after we talk about chapter 7 and steady state analysis. So again, right, as you noticed, right, this half-width half-width information about the confidence interval might not be produced if the run is not long enough for the reliable statistics, or sometimes, right, you'll get this correlated valueless, or it says correlated. So generally difficult or unreliable to draw conclusions, right, from just a single replication. So we'll talk more about this later, of course. So next time we'll talk about the enhanced test system, and this basically, will be more advanced system after some changes introduced, and we'll learn about resource schedules, resource states, and also resource failures. So thank you. This is going to be really useful for your Lab 4, as well as the next is also going to be useful for Lab 4, as well as for Quiz 4.